Let's talk about the third generation for a moment. It was an excellent time to be a gamer. The 1980s was a golden age for arcade with shoot-'em-ups, beat-'em-ups, puzzles, and even a rise of complex titles. However, being able to play those in your living room was always an amazing concept. The three main consoles this generation didn't fill up your closet too quick, but the NES, Master System, and Atari 7800. The two best-selling consoles of the era are what I'm going to be discussing. Which console is truly better, the NES or the Master System? I will be going over graphics, games, arcade ports, controller, and reception. So let's compare these two consoles. Round 1. Graphics. Because of the technological advancements with hardware, games now look much better than before. The graphics on the NES all depend on which game you decide to pick up. Most of them have fantastic graphics and play very well. The whole idea is just to have fun. However, over hundreds of titles got rushed to the market and broken game design has always been an issue. But graphically, most games are just groundbreaking, and seeing this in the mid-1980s was a huge deal. Sega took a different direction and has a slight edge in the graphics department at the time, added to the experience. Most titles in the library look fantastic, however, at the cost of lasting appeal. The Master System went straight into the closet and started collecting dust in the early 1990s. However, at the time, the Master System outweighs NES in terms of graphics. 1986 to 1990 was the glory days of the Master System. Winner, Sega Master System. Round 2. Games. The games are an important part of keeping each system in style. Revenue is important, and both systems have a stellar library that emptied wallets. The NES had some of the most important games in history, such as Super Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros. 3, The Legend of Zelda, Mega Man 2, and Metroid, to name a few. And most of them are still played through emulators or digging through your closet to gather pieces of gold. The Master System has mostly arcade ports, and not much stood out. However, Sonic 1 and 2, Phantasy Star, Alex Kidd, and Wonder Boy 3 are the best on the system. The arcade ports are also must-plays, but unfortunately not much have heard about these games unless you remember playing them decades back. But NES has the most classics to this day. Winner, NES by a landslide. Round 3. Arcade ports. As stated previously, visiting the arcade and placing quarter after quarter was the best way to experience video games during this era. However, for the living room, both consoles tried to emulate arcade games to play as much as you want. The Master System was essentially an arcade for your home because the ports are similar to their arcade counterparts, being the go-to choice for arcade quality content in your living room. The NES had fantastic ports, but because of the Master System's hardware, it has a slight edge. Winner, Sega Master System. Round 4. Controller. The NES controller has a more complex design than just an arcade-style joystick, making for some comfortable handling that modern gamers wish they had. This controller, despite all the blisters gamers get from the overly addicting and challenging gameplay, the best part about it is its durability, being able to take many hits. For the Master System, it's a good controller by all means, but most don't even remember the design unless you searched it up, and feels somewhat uncomfortable to use, but it's simplistic nonetheless. The NES controller, for its long-term impact, takes the crown for this round. Winner, NES. Round 5. Reception and overall impact. It goes without saying the NES has found the most success in North America and Japan, respectively. The Master System only found success internationally in Europe and Brazil. Master System sold 17 million, while the NES sold 61 million units. However, sales aren't the biggest factor for a console. The NES got most of the sales from its fantastic library and sense of innovation. The Master System only found success towards the consumers who had nostalgic bias towards select titles in the arcade. Because the NES has more console-exclusive games that the Master System can't simply compete with. Winner, NES, without a doubt. The NES to this day is one of the most iconic consoles in history, and nothing during that generation could even compete with it. Most commercial failures making it a tough time for certain industries. It wasn't even close unless you take into consideration arcade ports and graphics.